The narrator wonders what actually makes someone human when brains can be swapped and minds can be stabilized with drugs. Looking at the strange machine that only makes weird noises, the boy asks himself if his mother is truly alive or dead. He remembers when she had to get a cheap metal body because she got a terrible disease and had no other choice. This bad frame left her completely paralyzed and forced her to stay plugged into a wall charger all day long. Saying goodbye to his motionless parent, the young man leaves their tiny apartment to head out for another shift. Lighting a cigarette, he looks at the massive cyber city and feels completely overwhelmed by the depressing view. Walking through the crowds, he reveals they did not even have enough money to pay for that terrible metal frame. To pay for that metal frame, the main character had to take on a massive amount of debt. Even though he works without any holidays, the massive corporate screens constantly tell everyone to have a happy day. His phone suddenly rings with a notification saying that the next security shift involves urban combat on Street B4. The young man sighs because finding any true happiness in the ruined streets of 2055 Seoul is impossible. Armed rebels suddenly appear from the shadows, and the security squad gets ready to defend their corporate territory. A violent shootout begins instantly as bullets fly everywhere and turn the narrow alleyways into a complete war zone. Bodies fall to the ground during the chaos, and the teenager can only watch the brutal reality of his daily job. An armored enemy suddenly jumps at Hanel, who gets completely caught off guard. The heavy opponent slams the young guard straight onto the hard ground. Struggling to survive, the teenager desperately tries to reach for his weapon. He fires a quick shot at point-blank range to blow the metal monster away. Panting heavily, the boy realizes just how close he came to losing his life. After getting his paycheck notification, Hanul secretly wishes he could run away from this city. Knowing his deep wound will not heal on its own, he decides to visit the company clinic. Along the dark path, he runs into a mysterious girl with white hair holding a strange box. The white-haired girl is suddenly cornered by two local thugs who do not look friendly at all. One of the guys maliciously kicks her leg and causes her to drop the fragile container she was holding. The glass shatters completely on the ground, and the bully mockingly tells her to clean up the mess. Before things can get any worse, a mysterious hooded man smoking a cigarette appears behind them. Instead of using words, he coolly puts out his burning cigarette right on the jacket of the main bully. The girl watches in surprise as the newcomer calmly kneels to help her gather the scattered pieces on the floor. The girl warns the bullies about the medical department, and the boy makes a weird joke about steam engines. After hearing those weird words, the two thugs decided to leave them alone and walked away. A bright smile appears on her face as she thanks him for saving her from those guys. Pain suddenly shoots through his body, and he falls to his knees while clutching his chest. The guard explains that he got hurt during a brutal corporate mission and probably broke his ribs. She reveals that she is a pharmacist and pulls out a medical kit filled with remedies. Offering some pills, she tells him to take them 3 times a day, and he turns to walk away. Before the wounded hero can leave, the mysterious girl calls out to stop him. The girl suddenly stops him to ask if he has some free time so they can grab a nice meal together. The boy gets highly suspicious and jokingly asks if she is planning to rob him since he is completely broke. She laughs and says she already saw him checking his empty balance multiple times while buying those pills. Even though he finds her suspicious, he knows she has no reason to target a weak guy with zero cash. He briefly remembers his paralyzed mother waiting at home, but a free dinner is just too good to pass up. Giving in to his hunger, the tired teenager decides that accepting a single free meal will not hurt. His jaw drops when she leads him straight to a fancy restaurant that looks way too expensive for him. Grabbing his hand, the friendly pharmacist drags him inside because she wants to learn more about his life. Feeling nervous inside the fancy restaurant, the boy plans to eat quickly and heads straight back home. While sitting together at the table, the girl introduces herself as Seo-hyun and asks about his job. He reveals his job as a temporary guard while chewing on bread because the expensive meat looks too confusing. The pharmacist remarks how dangerous his work is, but he knows he must survive to pay off his massive debt. Smiling gently, the white-haired girl suddenly grabs his hand and helps him cut the food so he can eat properly. Eating something other than instant noodles feels like a dream, and she suggests getting some fresh air in the park. Standing under the starry sky, the teen explains how his mother's expensive body forced him into this endless loop. The teen mentions he would love to work for a mega company, and Seo-hyun reveals she actually used to work for one. This news shocks the young man since these giant corporations basically rule the entire collapsed city of Seoul. He asks why she left such a good job, and the white-haired girl explains she wanted to find true human perfection. After hearing her grand dream, she asks about his own goals, and he mentions wanting to relax on a tropical beach. She finds his wish a bit funny while they walk back together through the quiet streets under the dark night sky. Checking his phone, the boy realizes it is already late and politely thanks her because he must head back home. Seo-hyun playfully teases him about letting a girl walk alone at night, and the sudden comment completely catches him off guard. She mentions feeling a deep sense of kinship, and straight up confesses that she might have developed romantic feelings for him. Although his paralyzed mother is waiting back home, he decides that being late for just a few minutes will be fine. The young man agrees to walk her to her house, and they slowly stroll together through the peaceful night streets. The girl suddenly asks why he has not upgraded to a metal body, and he explains that he simply does not have the cash. She calmly explains that steel frames are just cheap tools and suggests finding a much more fundamental way to exist. The girl talks about defying causality, and the boy gets totally confused by her deep words. She looks closely at him and asks if he has ever thought about the root of human suffering. The white-haired pharmacist wonders if the true meaning of life is just endless pain. Reaching her place, she thanks him for walking her back, and he says it was the least he could do. The guard says he needs to head home, but her hand suddenly grabs his jacket to stop him from leaving. She quickly pulls him inside her apartment, and the heavy door slams completely shut behind them. Standing in her dark room, the teenager feels incredibly shocked by the strange view of the city. The girl suddenly asks if he wants to throw everything away and run far away from his exhausting life. Hearing her tempting words, the young guard hesitates, because he knows he has too many responsibilities. He immediately remembers his massive debt and his paralyzed mother who is waiting for him to return home. Seo-hyun looks at him with a warm smile while the teenager struggles to make the right decision. She gently tells him that it is perfectly fine to just relax and forget about his hard life for a single day. His phone screen flashes with 5 missed calls from his mother while they share a silent embrace. The white-haired girl watches him in the shadows with a mysterious look that suggests she has a dark plan. Sitting on the bed, the girl notices his distracted look and jokingly teases him for thinking about his mother. He explains that his mother cannot even speak but kept calling him, which immediately makes the girl tell him to go home. The protagonist admits he had a great time, and she suggests they should keep meeting whenever life gets too hard. Saying his goodbyes, the young man quickly runs out of her place to finally head back to his own apartment. On his way back, he remembers a dark memory from his childhood right after a massive war broke out. The boy got lost in the dangerous slums back when wicked human traffickers were constantly kidnapping innocent children. Sweat drips down his face as the helpless kid suddenly hears footsteps echoing right behind him in the dark alley. Turning around in pure terror, he looks up at a massive bandage-faced stranger looming directly over his small body. Falling to the ground during the scary flashback, the kid hears his name and looks up at a dark shadow in the red doorway. Suddenly, a loud gunshot echoes through the dark alley as the dangerous stranger is instantly taken down in a flash of red. His mother desperately rushes over to embrace her child while sobbing with absolute relief that he is completely unharmed. Shielding his eyes, she tells him not to look while the young boy wonders if this was his mother's very first murder. Feeling her trembling hands smell of gunpowder, the young protagonist silently resolved to protect her when he grew up. Escaping those old memories, the tired teenager finally slides open his apartment door and walks inside the dark room. Apologizing for being late, he sits beside the motionless metallic machine and starts talking about his weird day. He talks to his motionless mother about the dinner and admits he did not even realize it was a date. Looking down, the teenager wonders why she kept calling him since she never got to say a single word. He suddenly notices that wild rats chewed through the electrical wires and completely ruined the system. The guard immediately brings his mother's metal body to a shady corporate service center for a quick repair. Standing inside the dark workshop, the boy nervously asks the heavy mechanic about his mother's condition. The mechanic heartlessly explains that her brain is completely dead and tells the boy to hold a funeral. Walking outside the devastated ruins, the grieving boy immediately contacts his insurance company for help. The cold corporate voice on the phone explains that her old model is no longer eligible for any support. Feeling completely betrayed by the cold response, the boy hangs up the call in absolute frustration. Carrying his mother's remains, he walks toward a fenced incinerator yard where some sketchy thugs are standing. He accidentally bumps into one of the guys who immediately gets angry and starts shouting at him to get lost. The aggressive bully notices the metal container and mockingly asks if that disgusting tin can belongs to his parent. Seeing his silent reaction, the jerk laughs and says his mom should have ended things before he was even born. Fortunately, the other gang members pull their loud friend away before a violent fight can break out in the alley. The main character clutches his fists in pure rage but forces himself to stay quiet to avoid any more trouble. He sadly reveals she is no longer legally seen as a human, so burning her in the incinerator is his only choice. He remembers that they had absolutely no friends, so a funeral would only invite mockery from others. Tears of regret fill his eyes as the sad teenager wishes he had returned home much earlier to save his mother. The scene shifts to the head of security for Future Corporation, who is a weird brain-headed guy named Sanabro. He announces that a rogue doctor stole some crazy tech and is currently contacting the local civilians. One of the young security guards raises her hand and calmly asks if they should kill or capture their targets. The ruthless boss replies that they can kill any civilians but must capture anyone using the tech alive. Rain pours down as the young guard returns to Seo-hyun's place and sits down in complete silence. The pharmacist playfully asks if he is about to confess his feelings to her. The boy looks down and quietly reveals that his mother passed away. He calls himself pathetic for running to a girl he barely knows because he has nobody else left in his life. Before he can walk away into the cold rain, she suddenly approaches and wraps him in a warm embrace. Resting against her shoulder, he mutters that his entire life is just a complete failure. Seo-hyun looks at him with caring eyes and says his life is incredibly meaningful just the way it is. So-hyun believes they are destined to be together and promises to protect him from any future sadness. Gently cradling his face, she vows to make him happy and thanks him for finding her in this dark world. Holding a strange illustration, showing a spine, the girl explains how much she loves building tall card towers. Looking out at the city, she compares human lives to those towers that people spend their whole lives building. With a simple tap, she knocks the entire stack down to show how easily everything can collapse in an instant. The confused young man wonders what she actually means by this weird metaphor, while she just smiles back at him. Holding her warm mug, she calmly states that humans are weak by design, so she did whatever it took to fix that. The white-haired girl explains she only joined that giant company to find a secret technology called Pandora Inheritance. Looking at him, she claims that humans are trapped in an endless cycle of cause and effect which only leads to sadness. Gently touching his chest, she asks the young guard if he truly wants to be completely free from his heavy burdens. Leaning extremely close, the mysterious pharmacist promises to guide him to a beautiful world where no pain exists. Their quiet moment is suddenly interrupted when a small cup on the table begins to shake and falls over. The teenager immediately senses a weird vibration in the air and wonders what is happening outside. Under the sudden red lights, she narrows her eyes and calmly prepares for the incoming trouble. Suddenly, the door gets blasted open as the corporate security team bursts inside with their weapons ready. Reacting instantly, the pharmacist pulls out a weapon and tries to fight her way through the elite corporate soldiers. Despite her impressive speed, she is quickly overwhelmed by the heavily armed squad. Before the teenager can even react, heavy rifle barrels are pointed straight at his head, and he is forced to raise his hands. The cold soldiers identify Seo-hyun as a doctor and order her to surrender while she furiously tells them to get lost. While one guard dismisses the boy as a simple civilian, the other suddenly recognizes his face and grins maliciously. The cruel soldier mockingly points out that this is the same poor kid who recently cremated his parent at the junkyard. He continues to spit out disgusting insults about her cheap metallic frame and even threatens to burn the teenager alive. The cruel soldier keeps mocking the boy about his deceased mother, while suggesting they should finish him off quickly. Another guard warns his partner to keep an eye on the kid, but the arrogant man completely ignores the threat. Before he can even finish his sentence, a sudden gunshot echoes and the talkative soldier gets blasted away. Holding his smoking weapon, the teenager stands there with a completely cold and empty look in his eyes. The remaining corporate guards quickly try to react and adjust their high-tech guns for rapid fire. Showing zero mercy, the angry protagonist fires a massive blast that instantly takes down another armored opponent. After a final loud explosion, the last surviving enemy collapses onto the hard ground in complete shock. Haniel calmly loads his pistol while the surviving soldier breaks into a cold sweat. He raises the heavy gun and aims it directly at the trembling corporate guard. Desperate to survive, the injured enemy leaps forward with a blade to make a final attack. The protagonist easily dodges the strike and hits the opponent with a powerful counter. With a swift move, he disarms his target and sends the weapon flying across the floor. Screaming in pure rage, the young man stares down with completely cold and lifeless eyes. The firearm lands right between them, and the desperate man immediately lunges to grab it. The countdown begins as both desperate men dive forward to grab the fallen gun. The heavy firearm slowly spins through the air before hitting the hard floor right between them. Clawing desperately at the cold ground, the teenager tries to drag his broken body toward the weapon. Heavy boots suddenly block his path, and he looks up to see the twisted smile of his enemy. Standing triumphantly over the defeated hero, the corporate soldier aims the pistol directly at his forehead. A loud gunshot rings out in the darkness as the final blow is brutally delivered to the young guard. Blood drips silently from his face while a phone starts ringing inside a dark, messy apartment across the city. In a dark, messy apartment, a female guard with mechanical legs answers the phone to hear some bad news about Haniel. Hearing the update, she calmly remarks that the defeated boy was simply too weak to survive in this harsh world. As she gets ready to head out, her emotion control device automatically activates to keep her completely calm. Riding her high-tech motorcycle through the massive city, she quickly arrives at the corporate headquarters. The commander begins the briefing by explaining that 3 of their guards have been taken down by a rogue doctor. The robotic-legged girl asks if they are fighting machines, and the boss explains the targets are in a bunker. The strict leader emphasizes that they must capture the primary targets alive no matter what. The squad split up as the young woman is assigned to the second team, which is tasked with finding them. Clenching her heavy metallic fist, the eager guard prepares herself for the upcoming battle inside the bunker. The corporate soldiers quickly board their high-tech transport ship and head straight toward the target zone. On the radio, a masked soldier gets a shocking update that the enemy managed to take out 3 of their elite fighters. Their boss explains that the wounded young guard should be dead unless the rogue doctor performed a special surgery on him. The team is ordered to breach the bunker quietly using lasers because the target might now be a mindless corporate puppet. Meanwhile, the young protagonist slowly wakes up in a dark place and tries to remember the details of his last battle. He accepts his fate and honestly believes that dying is much better than ending up trapped inside a cheap metal frame. His eyes suddenly snap open as a strange metallic smell fills the room and a cold feeling runs through his body. Looking down, he is completely horrified to discover that his original human body has been replaced with a mechanical frame. Tears fall as the young man slowly opens his eyes to realize that he is now trapped in a cheap metal body. Staring at his new robotic hands, he looks at his reflection in absolute horror after seeing what he has become. Slowly walking forward, the boy looks around the glowing yellow facility and tries to understand where he is. The mysterious woman approaches and calmly notes that even breathing must feel extremely strange with his new body. Struggling to balance on his heavy metal legs, the teenager accepts her help when she tells him to lean on her. Checking the complex wires connected to his spine, she mentions that his system is running perfectly fine for now. The confused kid asks what happened to his actual self, and she happily replies that his surgery was a complete success. The doctor explains they moved his mind into a priceless body that even the wealthiest people on Earth could never buy. Confused by her words, the boy listens as she describes a secret superhuman project funded with massive resources. Looking down, the shocked teenager spots his actual organic brain preserved inside a strange glowing container. Laughing softly, she tells him he is the absolute latest model and asks how it feels to return from the dead. The guard simply shrugs it off as nothing special, but the clever girl tells him to say what he truly thinks inside. Staring away, the tired teenager admits that passing away forever might have actually been a much better option for him. She gently touches his shoulder and encourages him to be more honest with himself before her eyes suddenly narrow. The doctor explains that they need one more procedure because his human brain is rejecting the new metal body. She tells the confused teenager to lie down immediately because they do not have much time left. The boy looks up and wonders if going through with this strange operation will finally make him feel happy. With a gentle smile, the white-haired girl promises he will become like a child who can accept himself. Meanwhile, the corporate squad led by the robotic-legged girl successfully breaches the dark basement of the bunker. The female guard stays alert and prepares her high-tech weapon for a potential fight inside the narrow corridors. Checking her tactical screen, she confirms the area is clear, but a sudden red sensor flashes in the dark. Sliding open a heavy door, the female guard steps inside the dark room and stays on high alert. Her eyes go wide with pure shock when she discovers a secret laboratory filled with glowing experimental tubes. Inside those yellow containers, several human brains are hooked up to terrifying mechanical spine chassis. Shaking off her surprise, the young woman contacts her headquarters to report that they successfully reached the target. Another squad member commands her to breach the area as soon as the main power grid becomes fully stable. Moving rapidly, the armed corporate team blasts through the doors and rushes straight into the main room. They corner the rogue doctor and immediately accuse her of violating corporate policy. The robotic-legged female guard steps forward and calmly announces that the rogue doctor is now under arrest. Instead of showing fear, the smart doctor raises her hands and casually complains about her patient being interrupted. While surrounded by dangerous rifles, the smiling woman mockingly calls them fast corporate dogs. She gently suggests solving this peacefully while secretly revealing a small electronic button in her hand. The security agent senses immediate danger, but the clever doctor presses the trigger before anyone can move. A sudden massive blast of energy erupts and violently knocks the elite soldier straight onto the hard floor. Struggling to stand, the injured soldier gasps and wonders what kind of gravity weapon was used against them. Looking down with a calm smile, the mysterious woman explains that she is actually using primal causality to win. A massive mechanical shadow suddenly rises and looms over the terrified corporate guards who try to hide. The giant skeletal frame moves with unbelievable speed and ruthlessly crushes the soldiers who stand in its way. Her teammates quickly drag the shocked female guard away before the mechanical monster can take her down. The soldiers desperately call for suppression fire, while the white-haired doctor watches the scene with a calm smile. Inside the dark void of his mind, a sudden mechanical click signals that the integration is finally complete. The extremely tall skeletal frame stands majestically on the cracked ground as its systems fully activate. She calls out his name and gently reminds him that he is just a young kid who was trying to protect his mother. She whispers that his mother is gone and tells the grieving boy to focus entirely on his anger to fight back. A sudden shockwave of pure energy blasts through the room and leaves the corporate soldiers completely paralyzed with fear. The giant skeletal frame stands tall in front of them as the mysterious doctor mentions the word causality. She explains that cause and effect shape history and create a massive force that normal humans can never resist. According to her words, everything from the first human steps to the stars can be traced directly back to gravity. That primordial force shaped the entire universe and touched every single living thing since the beginning of time. Looking at the terrifying black hole hovering above his metal shoulders, she wonders if this monster is still human. A terrified corporate soldier tries to point his weapon at the towering mechanical monster. With a simple wave of his hand, the giant skeleton uses his gravity power to crush the enemy into the dirt. The other guards swear in absolute anger before a massive shockwave hits them and distorts the area. Standing inside a deep crater, the terrifying machine easily looms over the defenseless survivors. Each heavy step he takes completely shatters the solid concrete ground beneath his feet. Looking down with a glowing eye, the black hole monster leaps high into the air with dark energy. Deep inside the broken rubble, the female guard named Ha-Yoon slowly wakes up as her radio phone rings. Slowly waking up from the debris, the injured female guard realizes she is the only survivor of her unit. She observes the giant skeleton and notices that its heavy gravity attacks actually slow it down and cause self-damage. After her emotion control system stabilizes, the young warrior decides to keep her distance to survive this nightmare. The opponent has maintained his heavy field for 6 minutes, causing massive cracks to form all over his new body. Knowing that nothing can escape physical laws, she aims her weapon to force the monster into a complete overload. The girl continuously shoots while backing away to widen the gap between them and avoid getting crushed. The towering skeleton slowly pursues her but struggles to move forward because of his own massive weight. The giant skeleton grabs the guard and violently slams her down with his incredible gravity powers. The girl screams in pain as her mechanical leg gets completely crushed under his heavy pressure. Crawling away in defeat, she uses her radio to report that the entire rescue mission has completely failed. Suddenly, a massive burst of energy erupts as the giant skeletal monster completely overloads and shuts down. Watching the giant machine fall, the injured female soldier quickly confirms that the target is finally disabled. Back at headquarters, the corporate boss orders his team to secure the target because he is the perfect candidate. He dictates a contract claiming that the teenager used their secret tech and now his body belongs to the company. Riding the transport vehicle back to base, the female guard sits down to check her robotic legs and rest after the mission. Meanwhile, some workers in yellow protective gear quickly move the captured boy toward the main interrogation room. Arriving at Sector 54, the young woman stands by the massive chamber and quietly stares out at the city view. The brain-headed boss asks about the sedative dose and she admits she was extremely nervous during the entire ride. Knowing the boy will wake up soon, the leader orders the scientists to keep the surrounding environment completely stable. He raises his hand and hopes that the reinforced walls are strong enough to prevent the teenager from destroying the room. With a subtle tilt of his weird head, the strange commander decides to step inside and face their new captive directly. Sinabro sits down and confirms that all preparations to face their powerful captive are finally complete. A worried scientist warns him about the extreme danger, but the confident commander decides to take full responsibility. Walking through the heavy blast door, the glowing yellow hologram of the boss steps inside the secure room. The leader calmly sits on a cheap chair and commands the operators to release all the heavy restraints. The containment chamber slowly opens with a loud hiss to reveal the dark silhouette of the teenage guard. The technician panics over bringing such a monster inside while his female coworker tells him to stop whining. Looking down with empty eyes, the quiet protagonist slowly raises his mechanical hand to inspect his new frame. The glowing boss politely welcomes the teenager and calmly reassures him that they do not have to be enemies. He then commands an assistant to bring over the young guard's clothes, even though they are still covered in dry blood. The commander jokingly offers laundry service and tells him not to worry about the 3 guards he killed earlier. Sinabro asks if Dr. Soyun was the one who operated on him, and the boy slowly puts on his coat and agrees. The weird leader pretends to show some sympathy, but the quiet teenager remains highly cautious of his strange words. He explains that Hanuel is now charged under corporate law for the unauthorized use of their special-grade technology. Pointing at the kid's open chest, the boss states that carrying that stolen project in his body is a massive crime. Hanuel claims he has no memory, but Sinabro questions his statement while showing the giant monster. The boss reveals that the terrifying mechanical beast from the battlefield was actually the young guard himself. Although the teenager keeps denying it, the cold leader decides to show him his current situation. Pressing a red button, the commander causes the boy's face to glitch and break apart into digital particles. Sinabro explains that Seo-hyun completely digitized his brain and replaced his original flesh with technology. Holding a small memory card, the speaker reveals that his entire life is now stored inside a tiny computer chip. The brain-headed commander mockingly points out that the helpless kid cannot even speak because he lacks a mouth. Because his mechanical body contains their stolen gravity device, the company now claims complete ownership over him. Clutching his head in shock, the boy listens as the boss mentions dismantling his new body to retrieve their tech. The commander offers him a deal to work as their watchdog and pay off his massive debt to earn his freedom. Curious about his freedom, the young guard asks exactly how much this advanced technology is actually worth. The teenager gasps in absolute shock when the leader calmly reveals the price is about 7 trillion. He explains that even famous superstars would have to work without rest for 192 years to pay that. Sinabro claims this price is actually quite cheap compared to ancient warships that cost 15 trillion. The weird commander reminds him that he is the first gravity unit and warns him what happens if he refuses the offer. The brain-headed boss threatens to dismantle his mechanical parts, and the teenager angrily calls this total robbery. The commander politely asks him to calm down, but the boy is too furious to listen to his words. Pointing at the massive damage, the boss notes that wasting such a unique talent would be bad for everyone. The leader presents 2 digital contracts and gives the silent teenager a choice between death and employment. Accepting the dangerous deal, the protagonist gets officially welcomed as the heavy collar locks onto his throat. The speaker warns him that a powerful control device is now active to stop him from ever defying their orders. To pay off his massive debt, the new watchdog must head out to capture the rogue doctor who saved his life. The boss introduces the female guard as his supervisor and tells her to show him his room. While walking outside together under the dark sky, his new partner quietly lights up a cigarette. The boy watches her and tries to break the ice by asking if he can also have one. Instead of being friendly, the girl gives him a very cold look and tells him to shut up. Heavy rain suddenly starts pouring down, but she only opens an umbrella for herself. The poor protagonist gets completely soaked while walking behind her in total silence. They finally arrive at his room, and she warns him not to mess up the place. Looking out at the dark city, the young man wonders if he will ever find true peace. Staring out into the heavy rain, the young guard sadly admits to himself that he really misses his mother. Looking at his weird metallic reflection in the dark, he decides it is probably best to just go to sleep early. Suddenly, a mysterious voice echoes in his mind while a strange vision of his red skeletal body floats before him. The female guard then asks if he thinks that his entire painful life is actually nothing more than a bad dream.